Hi, my name is Martin and welcome to this OI10 video. This one's been put together because a number of our existing OpenInsight users want to try and get an idea of what OpenInsight 10 is all about because it's so very different to what we've had before. So this is going to be a very quick look at OpenInsight 10, even though the video is probably going to be quite lengthy because there is so much to cover. I'm going to try and gloss over bits and pieces very quickly. So when we launch OpenInsight, we get presented with the new IDE, the new Integrated Development Environment, the toolset, the 4GL, whatever you want to call it. This is OpenInsight 10. So fairly standard sort of looking window. We've got a menu at the top. We've then got TCL right on the desktop. I know a lot of you spend a fair amount of time in TCL doing things. It's there, all the usual functionality, including the assistant if you wish to use it. And if you're not into TCL, then as you would expect, you can turn it off, and the screen, as it will throughout the tool set, the screen will actually change depending on what you've opted. So if you turn it back on, it moves everything down and pops the TCL line in there. Below that, we've got the option to create a new entity, open entity, and gain help. So if we go new, then we get the new entity dialog where we can create new forms, and we can create an OpenInsight form, a data-bound form, dialog box, or an MDI frame. If we were to look at the database components, you've got application rows down to OpenInsight table, image components, creating lots of different images, etc. You get the idea. In the same way, Open will give you the same sort of options. It's a little bit longer, but all of the different types of entities that are available to you in OpenInsight, and then any inherited entities, or you can turn the inherited entities off and just see the entities in your application. So I can quickly open a form here. We'll do that in a moment as well. Underneath that, we've got three blue shaded panels. The first one on the left hand side here are our most recently accessed items. So you can see that I've been working on a test form, a piece of code called mpudc. Looks like this is a message, the validation failure message, and I can very quickly and easily launch these from this interface by simply clicking on the link, the hyperlink, and it will then launch the forms designer in this instance and launch that form. Or in this instance, I will launch the bit of code and it will launch the system editor. And in this instance, I can launch the validation message and it launches the message designer. So you get the idea. OpenInsight is fully entity tool aware. So if you're opening an entity, it will open the correct designer for you automatically. It's beautiful. It's lovely. I love it. And of course, it's all straight off the desktop. So nice and easy. In the middle section, you've got the Revelation forum. Now, I'm not very good at checking the works area and the discussion forum, being more on the sales and marketing side. It's a bit too technical for me. But just having this highlight here, I can very quickly and easily see what people are talking about. And if it's one of my customers, I might want to jump into there. If we were to click on one of these links, it will launch the inbuilt browser in OpenInsight 10. And it will take us straight to the OpenInsight, the Revelation US website, where we can log in and then access that particular posting. On the right hand side, we've actually got two options here. You've got news items, so these are all the recent news items from Revelation, and knowledge base articles. So one of the things I tend to do each day is just dive into here and see if there's any knowledge base articles that have been published, because I'm a great one for not going on the website and seeing what's new. Revelation's bringing it all together in your welcome screen right there as soon as you open up. So launch OI, go make a cup of coffee, come back and just spend 2 or 3 minutes just having a look and seeing what's going on, and you can bring yourself bang up to date really quickly. It's really nice. On the right hand side, the fact that we've started to open up things, and I've opened up the forms designer, you can see that we've got a panel to the left here, and I can widen this. This is docked east. We'll look at that in a moment. And you can see here we've got a load of controls. On the right hand side we've got some more tabs for our properties, events and repository, and we'll look at those in a moment. Towards the bottom we've got an output window where you can see output information from the system or from the designer or from TCL or whatever you've chose. So just having a look at the menu for the moment, let's just shut down some of these windows. And you'll see the interface is changing and moving around depending on what I've got open and closed. So on the menus, as you'd expect, the new menu enables you to open a new entity, or you can go straight into opening a new form or a record or store procedure. You can also create a new application in here by entering details that, if you're used to OpenInsight, will be perfectly familiar to you. You can open entities in the same way, or open another application. So if I was to open Sysprog, for instance, it will close this down and open it. We will do that in a moment. I can save everything on my desktop. In fact, you can have multiple tabs open, multiple modules that you're working on. You can save all of those and you can close them. Now, one of the things that I do really like in here is if I open up this test window again, now you can see I've got my toolbox and all my properties and everything back, but I've been doing some work on here for a client, and then I want to get that out to the client very quickly. File, quick deploy, locate a folder to deploy to, make some selections here, so deploying all the entities used by this entity, so in other words everything that's associated, deploy, bang, creates a little deployment for you. Not going to do that here, but you can see that that's a really nice way of very quickly and efficiently getting something out to your users. The other thing that I might want to do is to add this to the favorites. So if I were to jump forward a little bit and I go to view, I've got my start page viewed. So toolbars would be the TCL, we're turning off and on, we did that in a moment. The tool panels, I can turn on the quick launch, and I do normally do this when I first set up OpenInsight. And let's remove that one. Okay, looks like I might need to report that one because that hasn't removed it. Let's just open another one. This is an early version of OpenInsight. So let's say I'm going to be working on this piece of code fairly regularly. What I can do is right mouse click on the tab, or and click add to favorites here, or I can go file and add to favorites down there. Couldn't see it for the moment. See, all these menus and everything will change depending on what you're working in, so there's more options there than I'd expected. But now you can see you've got your favorites here, and if I was to close out of these controls and click MD UDC, then it will launch up the system editor and the code. So this is a really nice way of adding in your favorite entities that you're working on. You've also got your most recently used options, any updated and any that need to be evaluated. So you've got all of those options there. Okay, digress slightly, so back to the menu. Now that we're in the system editor menu, you've got the ability to create new, open, save, compile, close, export, email, deploy, etc. So all of the usual things that you would expect, and this menu will dynamically change depending on the entities that you're looking at. At the bottom you've also got access to the last 10 items that you've been working on. Edit is fairly straightforward. Won't go into too much detail there, and we've now got access to the source editor here, so we can increase the intent and decrease, and we can format the program, all those sorts of things. And you've got bookmarks that you can add in here and jump around in your code and everything else. Search, we can look for things, so you could do a find to find a particular word, all very standard stuff, so I'm going to spend too much time in there. View, again we've got search. I think we did most of this. The system monitor I've got turned on, that's just sitting behind the scenes at the moment, just here. So if I wanted to, I could quit out of OpenInsight if I put myself into an infinite loop or something, and it's obviously advisable to have the system monitor running. And that's the other option on here that we didn't look at, was the database. This is the database manager for all intents and purposes. So I can add tables, similar dialogue that you have seen previously. So locate to wherever your data is that you want to add. I'll just grab that table and add that, apply it. Okay, it's already attached, but I'll attach it again anyway. And when you close out, do you want to update the database image? Yes. So this should all be fairly familiar to you. Things are in a different place, they're laid out slightly differently, but the tools work pretty much the same as they've always done. These buttons up here just basically change the way that you're looking at the entities within the system. So system locations are showing the different locations, and dictionaries, whether you want to see dictionaries or not. And there's a defined database, so you can define it if you wish to. I'm not going to play around in here because this is an application that I'm working on at the moment. A lot of OpenInsight 10 is all off of context menus, so if I'm in the MP apps table and I do a right mouse click, actually let's just move this up a little bit so it's a bit easier for you guys to see. So if I do a right mouse click, you can open that table in the table builder. We'll do that now and come back to that in a moment. We can print the dictionary, rename it, remove, do all of the maintenance you would expect on a table, including adding different indexes and rebuilding and deleting indexes. And also you've got MFS controls and of course your LH verify. So if you want to verify your data, again, very familiar dialog box to most of you. So again, that's all off the context menu, very quick and easy to view that. Next one over, consoles. As long as you've got your engine server running, you can go into the OI console manager, and this is an amazing bit of kit. So let's just log in, and straight out of the box there's a whole load of information that is provided to you. So you've got your engine server statistics, and you've got some system information. I'm going to look at my engine details because it gives you my serial number, but if you go onto network driver, it'll tell you what network drivers you're running. I'm running standalone, so not a lot of information here. You can log off with the console. You've got a management dashboard, so you can look at your engine server statistics, see how things are going. Users, you can create and edit users in here. You've also got your user log management. So I'm just running standalone, so you've got my workstation name and my locks. So if you've got multiple people on here out of hours and you need to release the locks, you can unlock them from this console. And there's also the command channel. Now, I haven't got into this, but this is really powerful, and Bob Catalano has written a great PDF white paper on this whole console, and I would advise you to go and read it. But the command channel enables you to send messages to workstations and things. So if you want to do some admin very quickly, you need to get everybody off the system, you can send a message saying please log off, and the users have to respond back, and it's really very nice. Finding system, lots of information about the finding system. So you've got your linear hash management, you've also got your multi-value BFSs, your cloud BFSs, so those are your multi-value data connectors and your cloud data connectors and your SQL connectors, all of that's in there. The system configuration and engine server information. So loads of information in the console. I probably will do a video on it when I understand it more. Again, another one I'm going to do later will be Git, but Git is fully supported within OpenInsight. The OpenInsight development team for the OI10 project have used Git extensively to manage a team spread right away across the USA and also across the Atlantic to the developers here in the UK. So we've all been pushing, well I haven't, but the developers have been pushing and pulling stuff to Git for months and months, works really well. So that's now fully tightly integrated into OpenInsight. Tools, TCL we looked at. We can launch the application. Just from here you can do a Control L. I need to tidy up this window a little bit, but you can just launch your application. The Idk Module Install is really nice. If you're going to provide your updates to your users via Idk installs, before they had to drop down to the system monitor and do Idk install, blah 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 blah. Now click on that option, browse for wherever your IDK install is, click OK, bang, done. It's really cool, and I obviously have used that a lot because RevUS have been sending me a lot of RDKs to install during the beta and the alpha and the beta process. App backup is very familiar, the ability to back up your application and to restore it. And database gives you access to the same things that we had on the right mouse click, but you can look at your linear hash information for your different tables and a lot of different information like that. So you can view your statistics, you can manage your record locks, LH verify, fixing group format errors, etc., etc. You've also got your scan repository for errors and rebuilding indexes, etc. And under source code, we haven't got the code templates enabled in the first version of 10 at the moment, but we do have the commuter module generator. So most professionals are working on commuter modules these days. I'm not quite there yet. I'm still using scripts behind entities, but with the advancements in OI 10, I'm led to believe that there is pretty much no reason to use scripts now. That I'm probably one of the very few people that have been testing OI 10 using scripts. Most of them are using commuter modules. This will enable you to grab a window and run that window through and create a commuter module. So if you've got an existing application, that's a really nice way of being able to modernize your system and then look at the commuter module and learn from something that is more familiar. A lovely little tool. Once you've installed OpenInsight, the settings menu is probably going to be one of the first that you're going to go to. You're probably going to go here first for your IDE settings, but taking it from the top down, you've got your application settings, fairly standard for anybody that's used OI 10 before. You've got your database environment settings, again standard for anybody that's used OpenInsight before. So you've got your general information, your localization, debugger settings, indexes and reports, so your default stop list and your default faults and indexing and things. Your concurrency, not something I've used before, but you've got all your concurrency options the same as before. And then something that a lot of people forget about or don't actually know is in here, and with GDPR around the corner, this is really important. We've had this for ages and ages, is the report security. So you can set tables to exclude from reports, so people can't report on the OI pre-compiled code. Or if you've got an existing system where you've got some sensitive data and some non-sensitive data in a table, you can screen that at a column level. So you can pick a table, so MP patients, and I can then turn around and say, okay, I don't want to report on whatever, tables and whatever columns, etc. So lots and lots of control in there for locking that down. The IDE settings is the one you're going to want to jump into first off. General is fairly straightforward, so whether you want to save the workspace when you leave, so when it comes back it tries to reproduce it for you, especially if you've got several things open. Although for the moment it's best practice to close down your entities before you open them up, but the idea is that you'll be able to do that. Show your start page. So this is a start page when you open up OpenInsight, and the maximum MRU items, I think it's 20 by default. I change it to 30 because I've got quite a big resolution on my screen. And whether you want to show TCL or not, again, I'm not a TCL guy, but I do have it set just so that it's at the top should I need to use it. Tool panels, where you want to dock things. It's fully customizable. If you don't like the output panel at the bottom, you want to have a longer list, you can move it to the side. If you want to have your any of these panels wherever, you can just dock them north, south, east and west. I tend to just stick with the default because when I'm demoing, I like to have something that people can relate to. With your dialogues, you've got your find and replace dialogues, whether you want to have case sensitive find and replace or not, whether your whole words. These are your defaults for the system. And for the forms designer, you have got the option to minimize the IDE on the test run, so it just keeps things a bit clean. One of the things I tend to do is to make sure I've got my grid viewable and set it to 4, that I snap to my grid, etc. You can set the default font if you want, so if you've got a particular default defined within your organization, you can set that here. And your ID prefixes, you've got control over those as well. I do go in and change some of mine. For instance, I think the combo box is CBO out of the box, whereas I prefer to have CMB just because that's what I've always called them. You'll find some of them are just 2 digits underlined. I can't remember which ones, but I go in there and just edit them so that they're all 3-digit and underlined and what I prefer. But again, it's just giving you the control to do what you want to within your own application. The source code editor is a key one. You can set whether you show your line numbers. Again, you've got the find and replace options. For the code interface, I prefer, and this was a recommendation from Carl, to go with Consolidus 9. I find that a really nice font for the for viewing the code on the screen and working with it. But you've also got the ability to have braces to autocomplete. So if you do, I mean, braces are brackets in the UK, braces in America. But if you want to have the close bracket to be produced for you, or to OI to drop it in there when you do an open bracket, then you can set that to true. Most developers will probably have that turned off, but again, that's your call. The indenting, I tend to normally indent by 4 spaces rather than the 5, purely because of the way I do my comments. And you can have indent guides, a whole lot of different information in here. You can convert your keywords, and you've also got your syntax colorization. So if you don't like all the pretty colors, you can turn them off. If you do like the pretty colors, you can turn them on. And I like pretty colors, so I have them turned on. Printing options, miscellaneous options. You can set up your email servers. If you've got email servers and you're using that, you can turn on Git. I've got mine turned off at the moment. If you turn it on, then you need to set your location and your folder names and all of your interfaces, etc. And again, for console, you've got your engine server settings. So I'm running localhost, but if you needed to, you need to open any ports if you were using those ports elsewhere. And you get the option to update your defaults and reset your defaults as well. So it's all fairly sort of standard stuff. But the settings, I would suggest you go there and have a look at those first up. The O4w settings, same sort of thing. You've got your system routines, scripts, mobile, tablets, templates, everything that we had before. Again, if you're an O4w user, dive in here and configure all of these. Not something that I've got into just yet. I've got too much to learn on the desktop side. With regards to users, within your application, you've only got one of the 3 options available to you, which is user setup. So you can go in here, and so I've created a Martyn user and given him a name, a user type and a user level. So I can only work with OpenInsight. That's a bit mad. Let's actually set it so that I'm both OpenInsight and O4w. I'm a system administrator and I don't have an O4w user level. I'll probably need to set that at some point, but I won't worry about that at the moment. And my password is currently set to expire according to the policy. I'm actually going to set mine to never expire because I like my password and don't want to keep changing it. I can disable myself. Be a bit mad if I did, but if you've got somebody who's left your organization, or maybe you are unfortunately are about to fire somebody, then you can disable them so they can't go in and pull all of your data out. And also you can put new passwords in and force the user to create a new password on the next time that they log in. Now, I did mention that on that particular menu that you've got 2 that are grayed out in the policy setup. You need to do that in sysprog. So if we just go into open application, I forgot where I was for a moment, and sysprog, so okay, that from the sysprog, I've already previously done that before, but from SysProg, if you go to users, you've now got all three are open. You've got the policy setup available to you. This is where you can define your password policy. In fact, you can have multiples and turn them on and off if you want to, I believe, or certainly you can change the name. You give it a description and where the standard rules apply. You've then got full control over the formatting of your password. So whether you have a limited number or minimum number of characters, whether you want to have special characters or numerics. Also to the point where you can define that for passwords, all passwords, or passwords that are less than a certain length. So some people now are using full sentences as their password. You might decide that that is strong enough and you don't want to invoke special characters and numbers. Whereas if your user is putting a password in that is simply, let's say, Martyn, 6 characters, you might want to try and say, well, that's not very secure. We want to have some numbers and we want to have some special characters in there. So you're able to configure all of that in here. You can set the number of days before the password expires, so you can make your users change them every 30 days if you want, and the number of times that they can reuse that password. You can set invalid passwords as well, so no longer would I be able to have my password as password, or I might want to stop people from using Revelation, software, RevSoft, password, my name, things like that. You can stop all of that, or you can have a store procedure that will validate your passwords for you, giving you infinite control. You can also set the number of failed attempts. So after 5 attempts, I'm going to lock my users out for 2.7 hours. It's a bit of a strange time, but it's obviously the default. So if I feel like I want extended lunch time, then I could accidentally log in more than 5 times and take a 3-hour lunch. I think Andrew might have something to say about that, so maybe not, but you get the idea. Failed logins, you've got all of that in there, and everything's logged as well. So it's all really nice. The policy module's really nice in OpenInsight. Let's just go back. I can't bother to do it that way. I'm going to do it from my shortcuts. Go back to the Clean application. Excuse me a second, I've got a cough. Oh, talking too much. Okay, so we're back into OpenInsight 10. So that was the settings. Window is fairly straightforward, and help will get you into the help system. So if you go into contents, it'll give you all of the help. If you go into reference manual, then you get the new look help with contents, index, searching, printing, everything you want to, and you can expand these out. And yep, the help is very, very comprehensive, very, very good. It's helped me no end over the years, as a help system should. Now, when you are in the modules, every single one is different. They all work differently, but they work the same, if that makes sense. So we're in the table builder here. So this part of the screen is our main table builder, and we can see a visual representation of our table. We can see the dictionary names, the types, so whether they're fields, symbolics or groups, the position in the table, what data type, and we've got all the usual data type candidates available to you, the length, justification, whether a multi-value item or not, etc., etc. And you can also see as much of the formula for a symbolic as possible. On the right hand side, you've also then got your table properties, and these table properties are basically based on the actual columns. So sorry, if I go onto column, get it right, Martyn. You've got 3 options: column, table and repository. So on the column, as I'm clicking on the column, you will see that the attributes are changing for the column, and you can either change them in the table or you can change them in the properties, whichever you prefer. Some of the professionals will probably do them in the property panel, but it's entirely up to you. You've got your core attributes, the field types, all of that information is mirrored over. Sometimes you do need to do things in the property panel. So for instance, if I want to change this code, I'll need to go to the formula, click on it, click on the button, and then I'm into the formula designer in here. Everything is all fully customizable up and down, so I can make this bigger, smaller, whatever. I've got my Xlate wizard and I've got my check syntax straight in that little pop out, whatever you want to call it. So it's really nice. This is fairly consistent throughout the tool set, so once you get a handle on how it is working, it's really rather nice. And again, these panels will change depending on the tools to show only those bits that are relevant to you. So the table gives you the table information, and the repository gives you the repository information for that particular table. So if we were to go into the let's go into this form. This is just the test form that I'm building for the clinic application. You'll now see that I've got all of the properties for the forms designer, or what's relevant to this particular form. And in here you can see I've got the design option, and I can make these smaller and make so it just manages the desktop a little bit more. You can see the text for the window, tooltip I wanted to, the data binding I'm bound to the MP apps table, and then the binding options, the layout, so how big the form is, where it's going to display. This is going to be display center of the parent, how many pages, if you've got multiple pages, the appearance, and you've got a show effect and a hide effect, which is really cool. There's a number of options in here. So if I was to do, what should we go for? We'll do slide down left to show, and we'll do fade to fade out. If I test run this by using the test run button, you'll see that it slides down, and if I close it, it fades out. So you've got these nice little quirky things that Rev have built in that will make your Windows looks so much better. You can see here that I'm using transparency on these controls with an image behind. You've got new controls as well. So in here I've got this date and time, and you've got spinner controls and hyperlinks and all sorts of bits and pieces. Those controls are down here on the left hand side. So for instance, in one of my videos forthcoming, I'm using a static text, whereas you might want to use a hyperlink. If you use a hyperlink and drop that onto the form, and we'll need to put some text into here. When you test run that, then the text automatically changes to red and underlined, so it's more of a hyperlinks type of style. Behind each, so you've got all of the properties. I'll be looking at these in another video. I'm not going to go through them in any great detail here. But you've also got the events. If I click on the edit line here, then I get the properties for that edit line, and I get the events. Now in the events you can see which events have got a quick event and which have got a script. So on the got focus, I've got a script. Click on the button and it will open up the script editor, and you can see that I've got the script in here. Now one of the things that I really like about OpenInsight is if we add a debug in here and we compile that code, then you can see that it has compiled, but it's actually compiled with a debug statement in there. So if you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lines in here with one or more debugs, you can very quickly see that you've got multiple debug statements and take those out. You can find them and remove them and things, which I find is really nice. You've also got quick events. So I think on here I might have had a I can't remember what event it was now. Let's come out of there and do it this way. Go on to the events. Okay, it was the options. I had a quick event on. So quick event, again, a lot of this is just settings. So options, you got options in here. So general, calling your commuter module, starting a window, closing a window, read, all of the usual candidates, as well as a new one for trigger options, which I cover in another video. So have a look at the video that's looking at pop-ups. Really cool, that one is. The event action, and again, it's a case of just looking up bits and pieces. So no code, no having to remember what you're doing. It's all basically click and select. Really nice. Now one of the things that I will do, if I just go start new, we'll just do a new OpenInsight form and okay that. I used to have in my forms reams of code behind. I used to have code that would centralize the window on the desktop. So now I go into properties, initial position, center of desktop, done. I very often, when I had edit tables, I wanted to have a row stripe in there. So let's just, for the moment, we will add in, what am I trying to do? Row stripe, that's what I'm after. So row stripe. So now when the form runs, it's automatically going to put a row stripe in there, and I used to have quite a fair bit of code to enable me to do that. With buttons, so these are just a few of the new things, and I'm barely touching the surface. You drop a button on there. If I test run the form, and I'll call this test, yeah, I can overwrite that. Okay, that's because I've already got that in there, so let's not overwrite that one actually. That was the reason why that one was open, so we'll save that as mp_demo, and we'll test run it. The button, you've automatically got this mouse over effect straight out of the box, no code, no nothing. We can then go a little bit further in by dropping a glyph on it. Now I'm going to set a 16 by 16 image, which I'll make centered, and then I don't want the text, so you can have the text on there if you want to, so that will be what your button's like. You can have it without the text, as you would expect, and oh, I did the wrong one. Let's just get rid of the text on there and set the width to 24, which then gives me a nice looking button with a border. And one of the things you will start to see within OpenInsight is the ability to change the background color to transparent and make the button flat, and now you just get an image, which actually looks quite nice when you're doing this with an edit line. So I just drop an edit line on there. Okay, I've put this over here. Test run that. It looks actually quite nice. So now, as you mouse over, you still get the mouse over effect, and it's nice. I like that little feature. So that's the glyph. No code again for all the mouse over stuff. I'm going to change this back to default and not flat. And there's another option down here that I use in a lot of my buttons, which is the split buttons. Because I like to have my images all lined up, I tend to go with a left split. Choose a image. Okay, that. The file separator I'll leave as true at the moment, and the split width I'll set to 30 for no good reason. And the text, I'll put some text back into there. Oh, let's get it. And we'll widen this. And now I've got a split button with two controls on it, a drop down control and also a click event. So not a drop down control, a drop down event and a click event on the one button, which is rather nice. Now you can also remove the separator if you wish to, and then you get quite a nice little button. Now the reason I tend to do that, if I just do a copy and a paste just to drop another button in there, the reason I tend to do it that way is if my wording is a little bit longer, so longer text, it wraps. This all looks pretty smart. Then what I like to do is I like to have things all aligned. In fact, so it's like that. If you go with, if I just copy both of these and paste that into there, then change. Now this is cool. You're gonna like this. you can wrap controls and you can change the properties on both of those controls. So I now don't want this to be a split, but I do want them to have a glyph image, and we'll align that centered. Do I want it centered? Then you'll find it's sort of not overly well aligned. It's perfectly okay. Let me just see. So that was the glyph left. Yeah, so you get the sort of idea. You can change the spacing and things like that, but I actually prefer having these icons lined up rather than just to the left of the text. But again, it's entirely up to you. Now, one of the other things that's really nice is the property panel here. It's showing the properties that are relevant to a button or to an edit line, and you can see that they're changing. If you select two different type of controls, you see that they're grouped. The property panel changes to show only the properties of that are relevant to both of the controls, which is really nice. So I can go into here and I can change, for instance, what should I change here? I can just change the width to 200, just so you can see something really quick. So there we go. So you can change common properties very, very quickly across multiple controls. The other thing that I really love about OpenInsight 10 is you've got all of your normal controls, as well as new ones. So in here we've got there's an up-down control, which I believe is new. You've got a date time picker, which again I believe is new, as well as all of the usual. But one of the things I love is containers. Now we've got the group box panel and simple panel. If I drop on a simple panel onto this form, and onto that panel I decide to drop an edit line with a control and click, and we'll grab a push button and we'll drop that on there, and we'll drop on a static text and we'll click and drop those on there. They're actually contained within that panel now. So if I try and drag this off, I can't, because it's within that panel. But it does then mean I can move all of these items around in one go. Brilliant, brilliant for when you're designing forms. And even within your code, if you want to have things that are visible and invisible, you can make this panel invisible. If I can find the thing, so make it invisible and it completely disappears. All of the controls and everything else. I'm going to need to go and find it again. So select the control, the simple panel, OK that, and we will make it visible again. And incidentally, I'm scrolling up and down. What I could do is I could just make some of these a bit smaller, and then it wouldn't keep dropping off the bottom of the screen. But you can see the panels are really powerful. They're brilliant. I love them to bits. I use them quite a lot in my applications. There's a lot of really nice little features in OpenInsight that make life so much easier. So that's the Forms Designer. What else have we got? If we go into Open, tables we looked at, store procedures we looked at, images. If I won't open, actually yes I will. I'll go PNG file and just grab any one of these. When you define a new image, you simply browse out to wherever the image is. It's all standard. But you can set different sized images depending on different resolutions or percentage resolutions that your users are running. I believe I'm getting this right. So in my applications, they're all 100% DPI. That's the only one I put in. However, to make the images look really sharp and nice on a screen that's running at DPI 300, I could put a different image, so different size, into here, and then OpenInsight will use the image that is closest to the DPI that the user is running. It's fantastic, and it stops all this blurring of images. Really, really nice feature. Really nice feature. And you've got lots of different image formats that are supported. So if I was to do new image components. You've got bitmaps, cursors, GIFs, icons, JPEGs, PNGs, and also image lists. Lots and lots of different options for you. So those are images. Pop-up boxes. You've got a pop-up designer. So you've got your title, your source. All of this should be pretty familiar. And again, familiar workspace here with the properties and the repository information and the ability to test run. If you right mouse click on the tab, you can save it, save and close. You can run a test run, and same as before, you test run, you see exactly what you get, you see exactly what you get back. Nice and easy. You can also generate code. It's a detailed code for the pop-up. It's been sent to the clipboard. So if I go into Notepad, then you'll see in here that's the code for the pop-up. You obviously don't need to use that within your code. You can just simply call it in the normal way, but all of that code has been generated for you, and you can either change the properties in here or in the other area in the property panel. So I'm trying to go through this quickly because I appreciate there's so much to see and I cannot do this justice. Message boxes. So if I go into the validation failure message box, you're going to see fairly consistent again with the detail of the message box and the properties over here, and the properties are affecting the design. So if I change from maroon to yellow, then you see the main title changes. That was a really bad choice, so let's just change that back to maroon before I do anything else. You can generate the code again. You can also render the text as HTML if you wish to, and you want HTML in there. You've got your usual choice of types, so informational, response, timed, processing, progress bar. In fact, if we go into progress bar, then you can have all sorts of different options. You can have a smooth progress bar, have a border on it. You can show the percentage complete, so you can see that as it runs through. I've got that in one of my other applications. I might have a look at that in a moment if I remember. You can have it vertical. You can even put an animation on there. So if you have got a process that's deleting records, you can actually have a picture of a record being deleted, or if you're copying, having the file flying backwards and forwards. So you've got all of that, all the things that are in a modern application you can now do quickly, easily in OI with very, very little, if not no code whatsoever. It's really, really very powerful, and I'm thoroughly enjoying using it right now. So let's do no to the saves on that one. Yes, I do want to upset. What else have we got in here? Just giving you a flavour and idea of what's what. So you got your message boxes, you got OpenInsight reports, the context menu builder. If you're into O4w, you've got the ability to manage your forms, your menus, your reports. You've got your data sources. One of the things I didn't mention with the data sources in OI 10 now, we support multiple flavors of multi-value, Universe, Unidata, D3, QM, to name but a few. You've got different flavors of SQL and the Couchbase, so the cloud database. We're supporting Couchbase, I think, at the moment. All of those can be defined in here, but it goes on and on and on. There are lots and lots and lots of different options. Many are way beyond my pay grade. I don't know what half this stuff does, but it will be obvious to a lot of you. And the other thing as well we can do is in the forms is you can show the inherited or turn them off, so you can filter those lists, which I think is a really nice really nice feature. Right, I think that I've wasted enough of your time. I hope you found the video useful. I've only scratched the surface. What I'm finding with OpenInsight 10 is the interface is far more intuitive than we had before. Things are more readily available on the desktops. There's no drilling down to find things. You can have multiple components open at the same time. So if you are working in a form and you might want to add some dictionary items, you can have the table open, and if you're adding code, you can have the system editor open all at the same time, and they all play very happily together. Just the ability to relaunch things very quickly from the desktop is brilliant. and it's just a joy to work with. It looks fresh and it's super fast, and the guy's done a really good job. Over the coming weeks I plan to do more videos looking at each of these components in a little bit more detail, but that is your quick and dirty overview today for those of you that wanted it. Hope it's been useful. Leave me a comment and I'll catch you soon. Oh, before I go, I nearly forgot. I knew I was going to. For the CRM system that we have internally, what I do is I'm loading data grids when I launch OpenInsight. So this is my entry window, and if you do confirm you're the registered licensee, you can see it's going through. This progress bar is going through, and this is your percentage counting up. So as it's loading those data grids behind the scenes, and they're quite big, you're showing the user what's going on, and yeah, you've got the progress bar going along, but you can see exactly what the system is doing as it's working through. Anyway, that's this video. Hope you found it useful. I'll catch you again next time. Bye bye.